Let's talk about Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford, MBE. Now, depending on which media publications you consume, your opinion of Marcus Rashford may have already been formed for you. You know, you read the headline article, but you don't have the intellectual capability to critically analyze said article properly, so you take everything that's presented to you on face value. So, if you read the Daily Mail, the Sun, the Mirror, any of those publications, you may think that Marcus Rashford is a spoilt, rich, entitled footballer, right? Well, what if I was here to tell you that you've been hoodwinked by the British press and your opinion of Marcus Rashford is completely wrong? Yo, what's going on? My name is Ore Olukoga. I am a broadcaster, presenter, cultural commentator, and all-round creative idiot. And this is Small Talk. As you can see, I am sat in my bed. I am nice and comfortable. And what I do is I sit in my bed and I dissect the world of music, sport, entertainment, current affairs, and everything in between. But I aim to dig that little bit deeper than beneath the surface. So, Marcus Rashford, MBE, member of the British Empire, which is a crazy title, by the way, for a black man. I'm not here to judge, but that is a very crazy title for a black man to have. But that is a story for a whole other episode for another day. Marcus Rashford won the lottery. He won the lottery. He made it as a professional footballer. And we all know that football is the most popular sport in the UK and in the world. And about 1.5 million young players play organised football in England. And of that 1.5 million young people, only 0.0008 of them ever make it to the pinnacle of the sport. And the pinnacle of the sport, of course, is the Premier League. So the chances of making it as a pro, statistically, are slim to none. Then you add in the fact that he's a born and bred Mancunian, he's from the city, he's been in the Manchester United Academy since the age of 9, and I think most importantly, the most important thing here is Man United is his boyhood club. He is a fan of the club. And before we continue, I feel like at this point I should actually just state that I am an Arsenal fan. I love Arsenal Football Club with my whole heart, with my entire life. I love that institution. And I'm not the type of person that gets bogged down in football tribalism. Like, don't get me wrong, Man United are absolutely whack and terrible at the moment, and it fills me with immense joy. But that's not what we are here to talk about. When Marcus Rashford made his debut against my team, I was in awe. I can't remember. In fact, no, I can. The last performance that I'd seen like that on a debut was Wayne Rooney against Arsenal for Everton, and he announced himself on the world stage. It was incredible. It was sensational. It was breathtaking. All of the superlatives, right? And I had to put my distaste and dislike for Manchester United aside and just appreciate the beauty of the storyline that was unfolding before my very eyes. And I always talk about storylines. Storylines make sport. Storylines make life. A good storyline that you can buy into just makes everything that little bit better. And here we were watching a young man rising from nothing and ascending to the zenith of the sport. So that was in 2016. We are now in the year 2025, and a lot can and has happened in 9 years. Marcus Rashford has gone from one of the hottest talents in world football to what feels like public enemy number one. And the vitriol and the hate that he receives is beyond baffling to me. He's been subjected to a level of scrutiny that I can't seem to wrap my head around it. I don't get it. I don't understand. But before we continue to talk about Marcus Rashford, I want to take us on a brief little detour and talk to you about Britain's attitudes towards the working class. Social class is deeply ingrained and baked into British culture like a cake from Mary Berry herself. I could go further and even say that it is British culture. This is a nation where status and social hierarchy dictate behaviour and how you are perceived. And there's also this quiet, unwritten, unspoken rule in Britain where you must know your place. You must know where you sit in the food chain, and if you so dare to show just a little glimmer, a little bit of ambition or confidence, you will be vilified and you'll be dragged back down to where society thinks you should be. It's why you'll hear phrases like, don't get ahead of yourself, or another phrase that we often hear is, don't forget where you come from. And phrases like these are very subtle, but they are laced and they are delivered in such a condescending tone. Brits also love to build people up, and when they feel like said person has gotten a little too ahead of themselves, a little too big for their boots, they are brought right back down again. Jude Bellingham is the perfect example, and I might touch on Jude Bellingham a little later in this episode. But this isn't exclusive to just celebrities and famous people. This happens in everyday life as well, whether it's in the workplace or in friendships and relationships. It even happens in marriages, and it is something called tall poppy syndrome. Now, you're probably thinking, what the hell has any of this got to do with Marcus Rashford? Well, this is where I start to piece the puzzle together for you. Marcus Rashford is a young, confident, uber rich, extremely successful northerner from a working class single parent household. Oh, and he's black. Whenever he's criticised in the media, there's often this sinister nature to it. And one could even suggest that a lot of the criticism isn't even related to his on-field footballing performances. And talking of things that happen off the field, Marcus Rashford's campaign for free school meals was probably one of the most significant and impactful social movements ever led by a footballer in British history. His efforts to ensure that vulnerable children were fed during the school holidays forced a government U-turn and shone a light on child poverty in the United Kingdom. And despite the undeniable good that he achieved with this campaign, it was met with hostility from not only sections of the media, but sections of the public as well. Rather than it being celebrated and him receiving adulation, Rashford found himself vilified and accused of overstepping his mark as a footballer, and he was subjected to the typical thinly veiled racist attacks. Now, this was a deeply personal campaign for Marcus Rashford. The free school meals is something that he can relate to. You know, we've already touched on his working class background, and he knew firsthand what it was like to rely on free school meals when he was a child. His campaign was launched in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic, and his activism was not only strategic, it was well articulated, and it was undeniably effective. Now, rather than focusing on the merits of the campaign, some sections of the British press decided that this was the opportunity that they were going to use to not only undermine his character, but to undermine his credibility. And then out of the blue, quite literally out of the blue, all of a sudden, you started seeing these articles, these stories weaponizing Marcus Rashford's wealth. There were videos of him wearing chains and flying on private planes. That wasn't meant to rhyme, but you know what, sometimes. There were videos of him flying on planes and wearing chains, and all of this was an attempt by the British press to kind of portray him as a hypocrite for advocating for hungry children whilst enjoying personal financial success. Because we live in a capitalistic society, you can't be rich and not want other people to not be poor. That's just not how things work in the Western world. Then there are also the subsections of the British public who buy into the notion that poverty is a direct result of personal failure rather than systematic inequality. Many people have argued, and this conversation happens all the time, but many people have argued that parents should bear the responsibility for feeding their children, and the government shouldn't be expected to intervene. The problem with this particular thought process is that it ignores the reality that many working class families were struggling due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And then, you know, there are other elements at play, from wages not increasing in line with inflation, and years of austerity from the Conservative government, who were coincidentally lacing their own pockets and handing out PPE contracts to their mates and becoming richer and richer whilst the poorer get poorer. It's the classic case of this country. The way that Marcus Rashford was treated during his campaign is the perfect reminder of Britain's divided attitudes towards social justice and who is allowed to speak on certain issues. And his case highlights the way that the British media and certain sections of society react with hostility when a young black man challenges the status quo. Marcus Rashford is the embodiment of what a lot of people in this country do not like. A black man that does not know his place. Oh, while all of this was happening, by the way, he was still playing football as well. Yeah, he was still doing his day job. And not only that, but he had become one of the most prominent faces in England and was now representing the country at the now delayed Euros. England get to the final, and we all know what happens after that. Bukayo Saka, Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford all missed their penalties. So not only are you overstepping your mark and not knowing your place as a footballer, but you can't even do your day job, and you can't even put the ball in the back of the net as a so-called professional either. And this is where the racism and the media attacks went into overdrive. There is one particular publication that is a consistent culprit. Consistent. The Mail Online, part of the Daily Mail family. And I will sit back in this bed at another day and I will dedicate a separate hour-long episode to my own personal views and opinions on that publication. But that's not for today. But they seem to have it in for Mr. Rashford more than most. I had the pleasure of going on their website and I used their search function. I went on their website and I used their search function and I typed in Marcus Rashford. Now, at the time of writing this particular script, it provided me with 371 pages of search results. And on each page, there are on average 50 articles. I know because I counted. I checked. So if you do the calculations and if you do the math, since the very day that Marcus Rashford made his professional footballing debut 9 years ago, his name has been mentioned in a Mail Online article 18,550 times. 18,550 times. Now, not all of those articles are hit pieces. A lot of them are just from matches that he scored in or matches that he played in, and they're just sports reports. But then you see articles like this, and it does make you wonder, what is their motive? The strangely beautiful thing about the story that I'm painting for you here is that each part of the story links and leads perfectly into the next. Now, you might have noticed it, but I have purposefully left out a key part of the conversation when it comes to talking about Marcus Rashford. I've mentioned it in passing, but I've specifically chosen to not lead with it. But it's time for us to talk about the R word. The good old R word. The word that turns British people into Stevie Wonder whenever it gets mentioned. Racism. Now, this is the part where a lot of people are going to switch off the video and say something along the lines of, oh, there we go. He's pulling the race card. He's pulled the race card. But I implore you to just stick around. Stick around and listen to the rest of this video, this podcast, this episode, and listen to a perspective that you may not regularly consider. I'm going to be very direct here, and I'm not going to mince my words. Marcus Rashford is subjected to an unfair level of criticism because he is black. Marcus Rashford is subjected to an unfair level of criticism because he is black. People often think that racism is direct verbal abuse. Yes, calling somebody a black is racism. Calling somebody a is racism. I love the fact that you know exactly what word I was alluding to. That is racism. But there are many different forms and many different types of racism. And if it's not your lived experience, you may not notice the racial undertones to a lot of conversations in football. Black people are not a monolith, but a lot of us are incredibly vibrant, incredibly expressive. White Brits, on the other hand, not so much. Brits pride themselves on being stoic, the stiff upper lip culture. And I know that this is an oversimplification, but I'm just trying to paint a picture for you as I break down this story. As the nation becomes more diverse, you'll be exposed to cultures that are different from yours. And in the media, especially in the last couple of years since Brexit, in the world of Donald Trump, you'll often hear phrases like culture wars or woke left agenda. Cue the Sean Dyche meme. Now, the British tabloids have a long history of unfairly targeting young black footballers, and their reporting follows patterns that seek to undermine, demonize, and hold these players to a higher standard than their white counterparts. Anytime a black man displays any level of self-belief, any level of confidence in oneself, they will be labelled as cocky, arrogant, egotistical, all of the above. And the language that is used when speaking about black football players is so particular. You might miss it if you're not paying close attention, but it's so particular, yet so clear to see. These deep-rooted biases can not only affect a player's reputation, it can affect how a player is refereed, and it can also affect how a player is perceived by fans. I'm going to illustrate and paint a picture for you, and if you don't agree with me, I'm just going to assume that you're intellectually dishonest, okay? Not football related, but this is boxing. Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury is often lauded and celebrated for his brash, jovial character. People love him. He's very much out of the box. You never know what he's going to say. You never know how he's going to act. He's just being himself. He keeps it real. People love it. Anthony Joshua, on the other hand, I often find it, and it drives me insane. I hate the term, but, people often call him a wannabe gangster or wannabe roadman, or that he's being fake humble. You don't know him. You don't know him to know whether he's fake humble or not, but that is something that is always leveled at Anthony Joshua, and he has to be squeaky clean to even get a fraction of the respect that Tyson Fury gets. I'm not even talking about their boxing resume right now. I'm just talking about how they are perceived by the public and people in the media. And I could sit here and give you ample examples, Maradona, arrogant shit. Zlatan, being egotistical is his entire brand. Eric Cantona, super confident, super self-assured. Jack Grealish. Now, before I continue, I actually really like Jack Grealish. I think he is a great guy. Don't know him personally, think he's a great guy. But Jack Grealish, I need to use him as his example, right? Jack Grealish has been banned for drink driving in the past. And when Man City won the treble in 2023, it was, the guy was drunk, just drunk, and behaving in a way that a footballer shouldn't behave. But I wasn't mad at it. Like, you've just won a treble. Go enjoy your life. You're young. I'm the same age as Jack Grealish. Go live your life, bro. But if that was Paul Pogba, let's be honest, the conversation would be a little bit different. Harry Maguire was given a suspended sentence in Greece for assault and attempted bribery. And I'm going to get back to Harry Maguire later on in this video because it ties in really well with a point that I want to make. When the whole Harry Maguire case happened those years back, we had to sit and watch news reports and read news articles of ex-players coming out to Harry Maguire's defence, talking about, he's not that kind of lad, he's a good kid, And he probably is a great guy, but I'm just using this example and painting the image for you. Now, let's compare that to Paul Pogba, Graham Souness's favourite person. Let's compare it to Paul Pogba. What was his crime? Dancing. Paul Pogba's crime was dancing. His second crime, getting a haircut. Oh, I can continue. What about Raheem Sterling? What was his crime? Buying his mum a house. Being a footy idiot. By the way, that article is still up on the Sun website. I checked before I filmed this. His third crime was having a gun tattoo. He's come out and explained what the gun tattoo signifies, but this is where the double standard kicks in. His former Man City teammate, Phil Foden, quite literally does a gun celebration. He does a gun celebration. I don't have an issue with the celebration. I don't have an issue with the celebration at all. It's just the double standard that I have an issue with. Why are black players never afforded the same grace? And I say this all the time when I'm having conversations with my friends and I'm just talking in general. British people have a humility kink. British people want you to perform this faux humility for them. I don't know why. I don't know where it comes from. And there is almost this idea that you must be grateful that you are given the opportunity to be successful in this country. Once again, it's not direct, it's very subtle and it's very coded. And you pick up on this as time goes by. And there is a reason why people in this country, players, pundits, analysts, the press, there's a reason why they love N'Golo Kante. There is a reason why he is adored. Because he drives a Mini Cooper and he's not flashy like the other black players. He's super quiet, he's humble, and he's inoffensive. Yes, little N'Golo Kante. A little N'Golo Kante. The infantilization of N'Golo Kante drives me insane. It drives me mad. That is a grown-ass man. He is a grown-ass man. But this is how they want black players to be. Subservient. And it's also how society subconsciously wants black people to be. The thing is, a lot of these black players do significant charity work in their communities and they give back. And even if they didn't do charity work, they are still humans. You don't have to do charity work to be humanized. Now, I know somebody's going to mention the criticism that Wayne Rooney got in the early stages of his career. And I mentioned Harry Maguire just earlier. Someone's going to mention the criticism that he faced. And David Beckham is a perfect example for this, actually. David Beckham had an effigy of him hung from a pub in London after England crashed out of the 1998 World Cup. So somebody's going to say something along the lines of, how can it be all about race? These players are white. White players get criticised too. Yeah, don't disagree. But this is where I need critical thinking to start kicking in. Yes, these players are white, but they are from working class backgrounds. They are from working class communities. And of course, they have gone on to be multi-millionaires and earn stupid amounts of money. But remember how I said society will place you in a box and keep you there? Yeah, you can't earn your way out of that box. It's funny, but it's not funny. But a lot of white people don't realize that classism affects them as well. Classism affects white people as well. And this is where Marcus Rashford is in a somewhat unique position. He is in the middle where race and classism intersect. It's a double whammy. It is a double homicide. Okay, so let's fast forward to the present day. Marcus Rashford is currently on loan at Aston Villa, and there was a bit of a circus around him before he got to Villa Park. But let's have it right. Manchester United wanted him out of the club. The manager wanted him out of the club. A lot of the fans wanted him out of the club. This got to Marcus Rashford, and in turn, he wanted out of the club. The whole thing was a mess, and I couldn't help but feel sorry for him. And I still do feel sorry for him. And once again, someone's going to say something along the lines of, he's on 300 grand a week. He doesn't need your sympathy. Okay. He's a human being. When people equate the amount of money that you make to the level of scrutiny and criticism you should receive, I'm just like, you've got worms for brains. You've got baked beans for brains. I'm not going to engage in an intellectual conversation with you. And, you know, in the present day, we speak so much about mental health and player welfare, but that's never extended to sports people. Never extended to them. And it goes back to that point of jealousy and envy. People can't believe that a man in Marcus Rashford's position is daring to allegedly not turn up to training, or is doing whatever he's doing, because so many people want to do what Marcus Rashford is doing. So they're like, you are so ungrateful. It stems from that. Just because you are rich and famous doesn't mean you do not have emotions. And the club, they're the ones that gave him that contract. Marcus Rashford isn't blameless, of course. I'm not going to sit here for however long it's taken me to record this and not criticize Marcus Rashford once. I'm not going to do that. You know, we can't excuse him for allegedly missing training. We don't know, but allegedly he missed training, and he's now at Aston Villa, and weirdly enough, Unai Emery has come out and said that he's training perfectly well and he's doing everything that's required of him. So, there's something in the Manchester United reporting. And also, you know, Marcus Rashford was seen going clubbing in Belfast and some of the other antics that he's alleged to have gotten up to. As a senior player, that can't be excused. But he's a footballer. He's a footballer. Paul Gascoigne did it. Cantona did it. David Beckham did it. Cristiano Ronaldo. Neymar. He's a footballer. Footballers do these things. Jack Grealish did it. We don't need to hold him to such a high standard. But I feel like everything is being blown way out of proportion and somewhat taking the light off of Manchester United. Because Manchester United, I'm an Arsenal fan, but I can just watch and analyse these things. Manchester United is a poorly run football club. And it has been a poorly run football club for a very, very long time now. It is not a stable environment for any player to thrive in. As I film this video, Manchester United are 13th. Manchester United are 13th. Manchester United are 13th. What? Constant changes to the management, meaning constant changes to the style of play, amongst changes at board and ownership level. They've had silly investment on players that just spin around on the ball like Kylie Minogue. They have a leaking stadium. They've had a rat infestation. I can go on and on and on. I think that people sometimes forget that for significant periods of Marcus Rashford's career, he has played through injury for the club. He has faced constant abuse, but still scored 30 goals in all competitions in his last season. And at times, he has carried the weight of expectation of the team on his injured shoulders. And at some point, as a human, you just combust. I know I would. I know I would crash the hell out if I was in Marcus Rashford's position. For the sake of balance, do I think he should have done that interview stating he sees his future elsewhere? No. But then again, why can't he? Why can't he state that he might see his future elsewhere? Because clubs are so quick to get rid of a player and push them out the door. Why can't players use their voice and their own platform to counteract that? And as I said, I believe he's being pushed out the door and being made a scapegoat in this situation And then you have ex-pros that will come out and criticize Marcus Rashford when they were once in his shoes many, many years ago. Where is the empathy? Because the other day it was Paul Scholes and Teddy Sheringham. They came out and said something along the lines of, Sir Alex Ferguson would have never allowed this behaviour. Well, and I always have my receipts. I always do my due diligence. Paul Scholes once refused to come off the bench in a game against Arsenal for Man United. Wayne Rooney once openly criticised the club, the management, and tried to force a move to the Manchester rivals, Manchester City. The hypocrisy is hilarious. Before we finish, I want to read out this tweet that perfectly captures my thoughts that I've laid out in this video. Part of me thinks that he, Marcus Rashford, just wants away from the English football ecosystem and its microscopic obsession with not wanting to let black football stars lead normal lives without setting up goalposts that wants them to act like they should always show gratitude, have their heads bowed for being allowed to be rich and famous in England. Something broke within him after the political and racist abuse post his work to end child hunger. He saw how they used his penalty miss to further this agenda. He realised how they were using football to attack his personality. A sensitive boy who actually thought about his community and society, he was naive to think that thinking about the welfare of his community would be seen as a universally good deed. The supposed fall of Rashford is not only the fall of a footballer, it is the journey from an optimist to a cynic. A boy who wanted to do good things and wanted to be loved turned into a cynic when he realised the world around him isn't as genuine and good intentioned as he expected it to be. His driving force was love and appreciation. Once he lost that as something to strive to, he lost his drive. But football Twitter and football discussions aren't ready for philosophical and mental health debates like these. We stole Rashford's story from him and consequently his drive, because nothing is more dangerous to a rotten society than someone who starts to be seen as a good human being, because the contrast of the good and the bad highlights the rottenness even more starkly.
Like whether you leave the club or you stay here forever, that feeling never leaves your life. And people say that once you play for Man United, you're always a Red, and for me that's true.
The double standard has always been abundantly clear to me and to people who look like me. And you can bury your head in the sand all you like, but these are everyday, real life experiences that young black people feel every day. Do I think things are going to get better? No. Do I have the answers? No. But, like Marcus Rashford, I will always use my voice, always use my platform to speak truth to power. Marcus Rashford should be celebrated as a national hero. He should be used as an example of what you can achieve if you focus on your talent and build a solid community around you. Instead, he is vilified like a criminal. And that's why England has failed Marcus Rashford. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and leave a comment. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree. Let's have healthy discourse, healthy conversation. Let me know your thoughts and keep your eyes peeled because I have a load of these videos in the pipeline. I'm just writing away. I have loads of ideas, so there are plenty more videos to come. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.